Mm-hmm.
and I'm a photographer mainly, living and working in Durban. I've been freelancing since I graduated from Grahamstown, from Rhodes University in Grahamstown in 2015. So about 5 years. But I studied photojournalism at Rhodes. So that's I've been doing it since 2011, photography.
Yeah.
And I worked at the newspapers in Durban for a little bit as a photographer, and then I started to branch off into my own kind of work and started doing more corporate, to pay bills, and then also some photojournalism work that included copy and photography on stories for online publications. And I'm very interested in photography education. I was part of the third incubator program at the Market Photo Workshop, and that was kind of a journey that started with the DCP, which was the Durban Center for Photography, which is what you and I did with Peter Mackenzie and Lisa and
that
Shireen.
was fucking dope. Remember that?
Yeah. I mean that kind of space in photography is what I love. It's something that I'm really into. So that's kind of some of the bits and parts of me when it comes to photography.
The work that you've done with is it KZNSA, the studio in Durban?
Yeah, that's a gallery. So I do work for them also on a freelance basis. I manage their social media and publicity, and I've done that for a number of years now as well, since I moved back from Cape Town. And it's been a really cool space for me. They've been quite open to suggestions that I've had as someone who's considers themselves to be quite creative.
Yeah.
And through them, I've been able to show my photos and sell my photos, as well as do the YA magazine exhibition in Bloom, which we had one of your photos. It was a great exhibition. They are one of the people that I do work for in Durban.
Yeah, one of the things that I really love about you, Niamh, is your spirit of collaboration. Like, you don't shy away from reaching out to people and just, giving them their flowers while they're still alive and still around and still relevant. So I want you to speak a bit about YA and the work that you guys do there. I know you reach out to a lot of artists to contribute to issues. How's that going? And just like the journey.
Such a funny thing that we're talking about that now, because we're kind of going through a bit of a metamorphosis behind the scenes, which I don't know if we're talking about yet. But with YA, myself and Dave Mann, who I met at Rhodes.
Shout out to Dave Mann.
Dave Mann is the man. Yeah, so Dave and I started it when he was like a first year. Not a first year. He was I was a first year out of university, and he was doing his final year. So I was unemployed, and we collabed and let's just do stuff. Let's kind of fill in the gaps of no employment. So we started YA, and it was just for fun. And over the years, we've reached out to people who we really liked, like yourself. You were an editor, but you did nothing. So
doesn't count.
I mean, it does totally count. You're in our story. And then his partner, Yulendri Apasami, Len, also shout out Len. She's amazing. And she also joined the editorial team. And we've all just kind of, through YA and through people we enjoy whose work we enjoy, we've tried to just publish stuff and showcase stuff, because it's why not? So YA has been very important for us in our journeys to showcase our work. That's kind of how it started. It's no one's publishing us. We'll just make our own publication and put our work out there. And then we're other people are not being published. Let's try and
out to them.
And kind of just formed a life of its own. But now, we're busy working on the 20th edition,
Damn.
And we're like, yeah, it's kind of hectic. And I mean, they've all kind of, like the 17th edition was a wheat paste edition, so it looked very different. So, but yeah, so we're now like, cool, what's the next thing we can do with yarn? What do we want to do? And it kind of is the form of this book that I'm trying to promote as well.
Yeah,
because yeah.
Did I catch you? Do you want to say something else?
No, it's fine.
Okay, cool. I was just gonna say, talking about publications, you recently went to the DRC through your work with KwaZulu-Natal, the gallery that you work with. So if you could maybe speak a bit about that trip and how the ebook that you put together came about and the thinking behind it.
Okay, so just to correct you, I went with the KZNCC, which is the Council of Churches.
Oh, okay, cool.
So very different spaces.
Entities.
So yeah, so I mean, this was actually, I was going with my dad, who is, he's a minister in the Methodist Church, and you know, he's done a lot of work with the Congolese community in Durban, and it all started with the xenophobic attacks a few years ago. And I mean, he's now got this great relationship with a lot of the guys here, and I mean, you know, all their families, and we're friends essentially. And I mean, I'm Irish, I was born overseas, and my mother's Irish, so this whole conversation on foreign nationals, it's like really important to us. So I was accompanying him, one, because I was like, oh my gosh, it sounds great, he's been before, and I was like, I want to go too, I want to travel. And then he was like, okay, no, well, you've got skills that could be valuable to the projects that they're doing. So it was essentially to go and document and photograph. Sorry, I get out of breath because I talk way too fast.
It's fine. I have that problem as well, actually.
Just like all the ideas and all the things. Oh my gosh, it's also cold, but this backdrop is what's happening. Even though it's a podcast.
It's fine, it works. Whatever works for you works for me.
So yeah, so we went, he in the case, because his work was through the KZNCC and they were funding him to go. And then he kind of wrote a proposal, and they were like, cool, we'll send your daughter with, because she is essentially doing work for us. So yeah, and the idea was to go to see these various projects that the Congolese community who are here, I mean, they have family there, so we were accommodated by family members of family members and other church organizations. So it is about keeping interfaith organizations in touch. So we went to go and see the projects that these guys are in connection with. So that was the reason for going.
Yeah, dope, man. And then when you went, were you mainly documenting the activity that these different projects are busy with?
Yeah, so I mean, I was there to just do my work. I really wanted to just get the stuff done that these guys wanted, because I mean, they had paid for me to go. And so I've got all of that footage, which is not in the book. And then there were these moments where I could quickly get stuff that I was like, this could be really cool for my portfolio, or just this is my experience of this place. And it was very quick. Like I had very few moments where I could really conceptualize of something. And I was in a car most of the time where I took those photos.
I think I could tell, like just browsing through the ebook, you could tell that it's just fleeting moments that you were managing to make. And they look so beautiful, like the colors, Niamh, and like.
I mean, that place is just, you know, I was trying to tell my friends the experience of going there, and I was comparing it to my trip a few years ago with my mom to Ireland, and now culturally very, very different spaces. You know, visually, it's just, you can't really compare them. I mean, you can compare them. They're very different. And when we went to Ireland, like I felt very out of place. I did have a culture shock there. I was like, I'm not comfortable here. I feel, you know, this is not my vibe. But then when we went to because we had to travel via Rwanda, went to Rwanda, which is also like, that's a whole other conversation of a space. But it was just so exciting, and it did feel very familiar. I think even though very different, I definitely was aware that I'm sticking out like a sore thumb.
Damn, of course you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And but then also just the DRC, it just felt, it was super chilled, even though a lot of people said to me it's very hectic.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like, no, this place is awesome. I want to come back here. It's visually so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have these old colonial buildings that are just, some of them painted like bright pink, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just bizarre. And then there's all these like lush green trees that are overtaking the spaces around houses. I mean, I couldn't get good photos because we're in a car, but it was so exciting for
Mm.
someone who wants to make photos.
Yeah. So are you planning to go back there maybe next year or sometime when dust settles with this COVID?
Oh, who knows?
Mm.
I want to go back. I would love to, like, a dream would be to like start like a photography exchange in a way, you know, because I think that was also another thing. My dad is really passionate to get young people to go to the DRC, because I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people don't really know the politics. We know vaguely, but I mean, it's, you know, if we could really address the stuff of the DRC, could we really like address the rest of Africa, like all those questions?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that much about DRC. I'm not like ordering books and trying to read up, and because it's a great place, but it is being quite stripped of its resources, and there's a lot of bad stuff that's happening that no one's intervening, and not that we can ever, like I saying, you know, photography exchange will address that, but I think a connection with the country is what, at least we can start there maybe, you know.
Starting point of some sort, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
so so that was kind of part of it, and I do want to go back definitely if it can happen.
Judging by the stuff that you made when you went there, I think you should come back with.
I know.
Yeah. So what's the link between, okay, cool. You go to the DRC. Do you, when you went to the DRC, do you already know that you want to come back and put together this ebook, or do you come back and then it pops up in your mind that, oh, actually I could make this ebook, and then I want you, when you answer that, I also want you to answer like the link between the ebook, the COVID-19 hope for vouchers. Am I saying it right? Yeah, and speak
The hope vouchers, yeah.
hope vouchers. Yeah, speak a bit about the thinking behind the ebook and the vouchers.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know, I had these photos, and I was like, okay, cool, maybe I can put them on Instagram or whatever. I just have them for my portfolio. I didn't really think of where they could be. I mean, also just the experience of coming back, it was quite hectic because it was like the 25th of March and lockdown was
Mm,
coming. So we were just trying
yeah.
to find a plane back. So I didn't really, yeah, I had just, you know, I made the photos. I knew what the other half of photos of
Mm-hmm.
the projects, they were going straight to the, for the report for the funders, not founders. And so the ebook kind of came up maybe about 2 weeks ago. You know, just this whole lockdown stuff has been kind of shit.
Yeah.
And,
Crazy.
you know, and I think a lot of people are kind of feeling a bit like, shit, what can we do?
Mm,
Or, you know, that helplessness feeling kind of existed for me. And I was like, okay, I have these photos.
mm-hmm.
Maybe I can sell them, and maybe I can raise funds for the KZNCC one, because they were the project that I did this work for. I went on the
Mm-hmm.
trip for, and the stuff they're doing, the relief programs they have in place, it's been quite intense. Like getting the food vouchers organized
Mm-hmm.
took them quite a long time, but they finally have this Hope food voucher up and running, which is basically, it's you get families who need these they'll fill out a form,
Yeah.
and you get a 480 rand, 480 rand or 90 rand voucher, which they get via SMS, and then you can go to various shops.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also like food, like hampers. I'm not too sure what the term is,
Parcels, yeah.
but parcels. But I think the whole idea with the food voucher was a bit better because it gives people the choice. Like, we don't know what kind of brands people use, what needs they have to buy.
Exactly, yeah.
And like, if you want to treat yourself to a chocolate, you know, there's all these things with the food
It's not
vouchers a bit
limiting. Yeah,
better,
certainly. Yeah, it's
you
not.
know. So I was like, cool, well, this is a cause that links to the project quite nicely. And I also know guys who I can then connect to get onto this system and then receive it. So it just
Yeah.
seemed like it worked quite well with the body of work. And this book could also then be for people who are into photography, or people that I know who like art stuff might then feel like, oh, cool, I'm supporting this photographer whilst also something that they care about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you see, like your so it's like how can I explain this? Like what you studied seems to play itself like over and over again in some of the stuff that you do. Like I would assume, I don't know much about the course that you did, photojournalism, but was there a bit of anthropology that came with that?
Well, that was my second major, so I studied anthropology as well. So I did 3 years of that. Yeah, I think that kind of, it does play into how I see things a little bit. Even though anthro was definitely born out of a very colonial and problematic
Backdrop, yeah.
yeah, but that's also something that interests me now in photography, and how do we photograph spaces now, and the whole thing of a decolonized gaze and decolonized photography, and you know, trying to just be aware of those things, even though I was like, I have such a gaze whilst I'm in this place, which is like, I can't not have it, you know. It was very foreign, but it's how do we respect the spaces we're in? Are we putting a negative story in an image, which I think I try my best not to. I think it's a very exciting collection and colorful collection of photos in the book.
No, when I went through it, I don't think I detected anything that feels a bit off. It's more documenting what you're seeing then, and not trying to analyze situations, which makes the book appealing for me, I think. So if someone wants to buy the book, how do they go about it, and the prices and any other information that goes with that?
Cool. Well, thanks, Angie. So there's a link in my bio to my online shop. So you can either purchase off the online shop via PayPal, or you can do a direct EFT to me, and then I will do the donation side, because obviously it's 205 Rand goes towards the fund, and then the rest is for admin. So the book is only 250. However, this is all in the about raising funds. So I mean, if someone is like, I really want to read this book, I only have $100, that's fine. But 250, I've made it 250 because it costs 400 and how much is it? Let me tell you, because my brain though, it's
once I purchase a book, do I get a link sent to me thereafter?
I will transfer it into your inbox direct. Retransit. Okay. Retransit it to you. I'm gonna. Okay. This is. Oh gosh, it's also cold out here, so I'm like trying not to.
We're almost done though.
Yo.
So you
no, okay. So we transferred. If you have issues with internet, I can send via WhatsApp. You can email niamhwv@gmail.com if you have special preferences on how you want to receive the book. But otherwise, it's kind of straightforward. It's link in my bio, and my @ is @niamh.ashling. Plugging myself right now, but trying to get all the info. I've watched or listened to all your podcasts. I know how it goes. And
Niamh.
This is going to be such a cringeworthy podcast. Oh my gosh. Can we redo this whole thing?
It's not bad.
Facts, the facts. I'm giving you the facts, okay. And then, yeah, buy it from online. Or ask Andy, and then Andy will just plop the link.
I like how you're talking to people who will be watching. So guys, please buy Niamh's ebook. It's for a good cause.